Alright, welcome everyone, my name is A Variety Pack, and today I will be performing Bioshock Infinite 90% Gearless for the Nintendo Switch. There's a lot of things to unpack there, but let's actually just get started. As soon as I hit easy, it'll be about a countdown from 5 to actually start the run, so I will let you know. 5, maybe 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Starting now is okay.
Booker,
Alright,
you afraid
let's
of
take these
God?
off.
No. But I'm afraid of you.
And yes, this is Bioshock Infinite 90% Gearless for the Nintendo Switch, as I said before. So 90% is a rather notorious category for this. You might have heard of Hill Runner's Hats, which is the gear that, or the upgrade basically, that is basically required for 90% to perform it optimally. When you pick it up and you break your shield, you zoom across the ground at supersonic speeds, and in addition to another gear that you can get called Trigger Rush, those two things in conjunction to make you go extremely fast and basically break the game. Now, that being the case, this is gearless, so we will not be picking up any gears, meaning that everything that goes wrong is going to be basically my execution. That is the ultimate determiner of how well the run actually goes. There's no RNG required, as HRH does. Now, we're playing on the Nintendo Switch, which does sound like a nerf, but I would prefer to think of it more as a difference. 90% on the Nintendo Switch does obviously have its drawbacks in terms of frame rates. You optimally perform a lot of the tricks that are expected of you in a PC run of this game. You typically need to have at least 300 frames. There's things like super bouncing and crouch sliding and tons of other things that are, shall we say...
Hey! Somebody meeting me here?
Next to necessary to complete an 90% run on the PC. The Nintendo Switch version has many of the tricks that we're going to be that the PC run does have, but they have them in slightly different ways. So we're going to just have to sort of be creative with how we actually get through the run, unlike a normal PC run of it. Here's the first puzzle of the game. 1, 2, 2. As dumb as that looks, that's actually something that every speedrunner of this game actually sits down and practices at least once in their life. That may seem silly, but it feels even more silly to do this incorrectly. It feels even sillier to reset to doing the bells incorrectly. So, better to get it right on your first try, and better to spend the 15 to 20 minutes that it takes to actually sit down and practice that as we go along. So, I guess since this game is very cutscene heavy relative to other Bioshock games that exist now, I'll cover a little bit of the plot, which, you know, is a rarity in a speedrun, but since I have the time, I might as well cover it. You play as Booker DeWitt, who is very stupidly just sat down in this chair with very obvious arm coverings on either side. He has been instructed to bring us, the girl, and wipe away the debt. Something that he interprets to mean if he goes to this new land and brings back the girl, named Elizabeth, as he just found out, then his debts will all be cleared. And he's accrued many of them. So we will be transporting ourselves slightly unwillingly to the skyland of Columbia, which looks very nice and pristine on the surface, but we will soon learn is a land of quite a bit of prejudice. Now, because this run is so cutscene heavy, there will be times where I simply won't have all too much to say. But I'll try to fill in lore bits whenever I can. Because Lord knows there are certainly many of them. So we are currently descending into the land of Columbia, where we will have to be baptized in order to actually enter. Or at least as baptized as one can be, in a very small impromptu ritual. While we are taking this little plunge, I will say that this is probably my favorite category of this game to run. I think it's a little bit more execution heavy and certainly does not rely on the RNG that a lot of the other categories rely on. Now, technically on the PC, there is the HRH mod, so you can use that instead of having to just reset over and over again, but on the consoles, that is unfortunately not possible. So we are required, if you do any other category that's not Gearless, to simply reset for HRH or drop cloth over and over and over again, and that's no fun. So I prefer Gearless because it is there are some elements of RNG, but not nearly as many as there would be on a any percent or all collectibles or even a glitchless run.
On this day of days, we recommit ourselves to our city and to our prophet, Father Comstock. We recommit.
Movement is relatively standard.
Someone from the sodden below.
Moving around with the right stick, moving around with our actual body with the left stick, and you can simply click down L3, and you can
I just need passage into the city.
Passage to the city. Brother,
this is
the
feature
only
witting.
way to Columbia is through.
And I'll actually go ahead and turn on dialogue subtitles for the viewer experience.
Sweet waters of baptism. Will you be cleansed, brother?
Hey.
I baptize you in the name of our prophet, in the name of our founders, and the name of our Lord.
He's going to be a little bit rough with us, you could say.
I don't
Perhaps a
know,
bit too
brothers and
excited
sisters,
to perform this baptism.
but this one doesn't look clean to me.
As he puts us in the water for a tad too. We're going to wake up in this room that I promise has no plot relevance whatsoever.
Who's there?
And we're actually going to jump over the table instead of going around it, just to expedite the process of leaving a little bit. Coming up, we're going to be performing the first of our major, in quotation marks, skips. It's not a huge one. That's not it. Jumping on the rose bushes is indeed faster, but this is going to be platforms. Yep. We're going to wait for a very specific audio cue in the violin, and when we hear it, we can jump off the right-hand side of this platform and hopefully make it onto the bottom platform without having. Very well done. That prevents us, again, from having to wait for the entire thing to fall down, and it really only loses 7 seconds, but it really does feel pretty bad to miss. So, it's a good thing that we got it. If you were playing on the PC version, you could perform what's called a crouch slide by moving up to this fine gentleman here, and sort of looking down, crouching, and sort of moving past the collision that exists from this barrier. That requires a lot of frames. Like I said, we don't have that many Nintendo Switch, so we're going to be doing a little bit of waiting. Read these interesting clips. Alright, we can actually jump over the barrier at the last second, so we don't actually have to wait for the little barriers to come up. We'll just make our way forward. we get
That's what they said
interrupted by
I'd find
this
her.
very
Telegram,
well-rendered
Mr.
child here.
Telegram for you, sir.
And after this, we're going to be performing our
DeWitt,
first
stop.
actual major
Do
skip,
not
which is
alert
raffle skip.
Comstock to your presence.
If you've played this game casually, you
Whatever
might
you do,
perhaps
do not
remember
get number
the very
76.
uncomfortable cutscene that involves Jeremiah Fink and a couple who wish to be married. We're going to skip all of that, not only because it's a bit uncomfortable, but also because it's very slow. And we're going to do so by jumping on a sign. Which sounds pretty stupid, but let me show you what I mean. On this possession sign here, it has two vertices on each end. So we're jumping on the first one, jumping on the second one, jumping backwards onto the awning, and jumping through this, the little section there. Reveals that there's actually no collision. Actual facades. So you can simply jump off the corner at the end and skip the entirety of the raffle cup. You do want to be slightly careful so as to not fall into the void. You will fall there, not forever, but for a very, very long time. And if you miss time when you relive the checkpoint, you can actually just fall there forever and be trapped. So we certainly don't want that. Now, we are playing with the DLCs in this game, which gives us a few extra added bonuses. After we skip all this text, we obviously can't pick up any of the gears, but we can pick up these infusions. As you might see from the menu, infusions allow you to increase either your health, your shields, or your salts. Salts, of course, being the sort of mana equivalent of this game. It gives you extra magic power when you have more. And since we're going to actually want to die several times throughout this run, we're going to focus on getting salts, and once we get our full salts bar, we're never going to pick up another infusion. Which is convenient, because after the 10th one we pick up, they become substantially less convenient to pick up. So, it's a good thing that we get only as many as we need. Now, we actually missed picking up a very crucial thing, this first magic spell called Devil's Kiss. But thankfully, this game has an interesting little interaction where if you pick up a vigor in a place that was unintended by the developers, there's not an associated cutscene with it. Normally, if you're to pick up Devil's Kiss in its intended location with firemen during the raffle of the game, there would be this very long cutscene where Booker has his arms melt off for a little bit, and it's pretty gruesome and no one wants to watch that. So, instead, by picking it up later, which thankfully it still gives you the vigor, we make sure that we get to skip that cutscene. In the fraternal order of the Raven, we're going to pick up yet another infusion that's on the table, because the game is still introducing us to the concept of infusions, and make our way up this elevator. Coming up is a first fight against a crow enemy. If you've faced Houdini splicers in Bioshock 1, relatively reminiscent of that, they'll just teleport around, but instead of the ranged attack that they have, these guys have physical attacks, so we're going to make use of that. In this line of sight, we're going to place 2 fireball traps by holding the vigor shooting button. Looking at his bottle assaults, the crow will run in the fireball traps.
What's this? Some new kind of vigor?
Now we're going to make use of this
Station.
quick thing that we got from before, and I didn't mention it, but thankfully when we perform raffle skip, we still actually get access to the skyhook/melee weapon. If we did not, then we would be screwed, because you actually need that to progress. But thankfully, the game still gives it to us, even if we do skip the raffle section. This game sort of was released in a time where you could really just skip a lot of encounters, which is very nice for us, so we don't have to waste time doing them. And we get our introduction to sky rails and sky hooks. I remember when I was younger playing this game for the first time, I was really wanting to introduce myself to the 4D aspect of it and like blow a fan in it, just because this is really, really, really fun. If you're playing this casually, it's even more fun, I'll be honest. You don't really use the sky rails for any combat-centric things, but you certainly can when you're playing casually. Yet another example of a skippable encounter. We just go around these skyhooks here. And we're gonna make ourselves our way to another rather lengthy cutscene where we are introduced to Father Comstock, who is going to be our primary antagonist for the rest of the video. Now, as much as I'd like to let him chat, we actually do have a skip that we must perform. As this Zeppelin thing rises very different the traffic, there's going to be a little bit of a doorway here. Oh, wait, this isn't the head of the prophet, excuse me. Just a Zeppelin. In that doorway, we're going to actually shoot some fireball traps all the way from over here, all the way into over there. The reason for this is there's going to be an encounter that we must actually execute. But if we place well-placed fireball traps into just inside the doorway, we can make it so that those enemies actually explode.
You don't know me,
Thus
pal.
making it so we don't actually have to complete the fight, we just have to sort of maneuver ourselves into the doorway. There's a door in there that does not typically unlock until all the enemies are defeated. However, with this skip, we should be able to unlock it regardless.
What brought you to Columbia, Booker? Bring us the girl and wipe away the
Take out
debt.
some of these Comstock
This
bars
will
here,
end
since
in
they're
blood.
very
Then again,
unaware. It's
it
like,
always does with you, doesn't it? It always ends in blood.
and we're gonna pick up a little bit of extra ammo from these guys
Crook is bent and thy path is
before we make our way to see if we executed the trick properly.
which you came.
Holy shit.
And it seems like
Gotta
we
find
did.
a patrol to take this thing to Monument Island. I'm sure I can get this thing going.
The Lord forgives everything. But I'm just a prophet. So I don't have to. Amen.
Amen.
Perfect. So we can ignore these guys who are supposed to be dead, technically. We're gonna run all the way over here, and we're actually going to latch onto this sky without actually being able to see it. Which is nice. We're gonna just move this mouse here, and make our way to the very next section of the game, Monument Island. Alright, things are going relatively well so far. Unfortunately, Monument Tower, as the game wants to call it, is not very fun.
Monument Island.
And unfortunately, there's just no way around it. The game lets you have your guns and your vigors out as though there will be enemies to fight in this supposedly very heavily guarded place. That is not the case. There are literally no enemies that can deal any threat to you here, so we're just gonna be doing a little bit of optimal movement, you could say. Something that we do need to make sure we pick up is this infusion behind the table here. Like I said, we're running out of infusions that are just simply easily accessible for us, but we're gonna pick up as many as we are. What I mean by that, I guess I should clarify now that we have the time, is that a lot of infusions are sort of behind locked doors that Elizabeth has to lockpick. A lot of them are behind very specific battles and very specific, like, fights that you must fight that are sort of out of the way and stuff like that, and it's just not really worth it, so. We need our maximum of 10 salt upgrades, and once we get that, there's no reason to get more. So this is Elizabeth. She will be both our good companion and a bit of a liability. The game made it so that when you're in combat, she does not have collision. Very nice, because move around freely throughout the arena. But when you're not in combat, she actually does have collision, which can be really annoying when you're trying to run and she's in the way. Additionally, there's a little bit of RNG, but it's normally not that big of a deal. Basically, she has the option when you're low on a resource, say health or salt or ammo or something like that, or even money, to sort of give you an excess or a surplus of that when you're in need. Unfortunately, that is random, and if you happen to be missing 2 resources, it's a little bit random which of the 2 the game determines is more useful for you. That doesn't honestly come into play a whole ton since we have ways to route around it. But when you're in need, let's say you need help, if you don't die, and he decides to give you salts, it stings a little bit. I can't lie about that.
This job's getting worse all the time.
Alright. We are now making our way up to the top of the tower, which did not take very long. And as I said before, we met literally no resistance. So I'm not exactly sure why they didn't put enemies in here. It feels like a place that Columbia would want to guard more than anywhere else, but maybe that's just me.
Hello.
She's obviously not very happy to see us, so she decides to look at us.
Knock it off! Stop it! Will you stop it? Not here to hurt you.
Who are you?
My name is DeWitt. I'm a friend. Come to get you out of
Get
here.
away! Are you real?
I'm real enough.
And we're gonna notice that she has a slightly missing.
You've got
Again,
to go.
I'm sure has nothing to do.
You don't want to be here when he gets here. Just a minute, I'm getting dressed.
Get you out of here.
There's no way out. Trust me, I've looked. Stop it, you're too impatient. That's enough.
What about this?
What about it?
This is the way out, isn't it?
What are you... Give it to me.
We give Elizabeth the key that we were given at the very beginning of the game, and very conveniently it unlocks this giant metal door,
It's
which
a way out.
feels a little bit like a difference in magnitude from lock to unlock method. I'm no
Good
locksmith.
job to keep me locked up in here.
We'll see about that.
And the building
Why
is
did
going
you
to
come
begin to
here?
shake. And it's going to be real to be one of our secondary adversaries for the rest of the game. It's going to be Songbird.
Hurry!
The game gives us our gun as a sort of sick joke, since you think that you'd be able to shoot or fight the Songbirds, but no.
elevator!
I think the game sort of expects you to do so. The Songbird will appear here, spoilers for the next 10 seconds, and sort of try to grab Elizabeth and stab you. And I think the game sort of wants you to shoot Songbird here,
Why did they
but it
put me
literally
in
does
here?
nothing.
What
And
am
so
I?
I'm going to save my
What am I?
You're the girl who's getting out of this tower.
We're gonna jump down, and we're gonna basically do a little race against Elizabeth to get to the top of this stairwell here.
We have to keep moving.
We're currently winning.
Careful, Elizabeth.
How do you know my...
However, it appears that Elizabeth knows the powers of teleportation, so she
Out of the
will
way.
win the race.
Which way?
We're gonna make our way up to the top of the tower, which is strange because I feel like if you're trying to escape the tower, you should go down. But this game loves its buttons. Luckily, there's a very convenient skyline here, which Booker's arm could be completely blown off, but again, suspension of disbelief. People tend to like this music a lot. One of my moms in the chat likes this little head bob thing. So if you got any new jam vibe emotes, they can get them. Songbird's gonna try to reach him. We're gonna learn that Songbird has a key weakness. Water pressure, apparently. Not even that much water pressure. We're not that far below. Songbird's glass eyes clearly can.
Mr. DeWitt! Mr. DeWitt! Bring us the girl!
We're gonna enter this completely not plot relevant room again. And instead of having to jump over a desk this time, we can just... Right.
Anna.
No, it's me, Elizabeth. Are you all right?
Where am I?
Back in the land of the living. Here, let me.
I'll be fine.
You almost drowned. You need to...
I said I'm fine. Just give me a minute.
Do you hear that?
Elizabeth's gonna be relatively
It's music.
enamored with the fact that she's out, so she's gonna take the opportunity. A little bit of a dance lesson.
I won't be long, Mr. DeWitt.
Sort of cruelly leaves us on the side of the beach, but that's okay.
Where is she? You see a young girl?
One of the things about the routing in this game is that we actually want to, even though we don't have the gear that makes it so that we get extra speed from speed, we're still going to try to actually look through as many things as possible, simply because there's a lot of money that's actually required by this route. I shouldn't say required, it's highly recommended that you get a lot of money. You're typically not going to have a lot of problems trying to get money to buy these centrals. You're going to need to buy a couple of vigors, you're going to need to buy some ammo, weapon upgrades. Those aren't going to be a huge problem. There is one upgrade that is nice to have, but is a little bit difficult to actually route in. And that's going to be the second upgrade for one of our primary guns that we're going to pick later down the line. The first upgrade is going to be relatively easy to pick up, but the second one does require a little bit of foresight.
Mr. DeWitt, Comstock. I've read about him. So I can see the future.
Give a man a little power.
We're going to make the
Falls in all kinds of love with
very important decision if we're going
Mr.
to
DeWitt, here.
pick the bird or the cage.
Or the cage.
Or perhaps the bird.
And unfortunately,
Nothing
I can't
beats
read
the
chat right
cage.
now
He's still a kid.
for some reason, so I'm just going to assume that a
Look
lot
at
of
these,
people
they're
would like me.
amazing. Which one do you like more? This one or this? The bird?
The one on the right.
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
I love it.
Surprising. I expected the cage.
If you're going to be a sore loser, then I shan't do this again.
Now that's just sophistry.
Oh my god.
And here we're going to learn that Elizabeth has very
Who else would do such a thing?
Are you alright?
potent lockpicking powers.
We should get out of here.
Booker's going to be very, throughout the rest of this game, Booker's going to be very intrigued by the fact that Elizabeth has an interest in lockpicking. You know, someone who was trapped in a tower for the vast majority of her life. Elizabeth is going to try to give us some money here, but we're going to jump over that trigger and save it for when we're in the arcade room here.
Mr. DeWitt.
When we catch the coin in this room, Elizabeth will follow us through, meaning that when we try to activate this next little cutscene, Esther over here, Elizabeth will be primed and ready to do so.
Annabelle?
Excuse me?
When you catch the coin
Annabelle, it's
where
me,
the game
Esther.
intends, sometimes
Oh,
Elizabeth
no, I'm
can
not
lag
Annabelle.
behind.
Are you sure?
And what that
My
means is that
name's
you're going to have to
Elizabeth.
wait a little bit
Do I know
extra
you?
for Elizabeth to come over here.
Isn't that
It's a little bit
lovely
random. So
name?
we try to make it as
That was odd.
consistent as
Last
possible by
customer.
catching the coin
Park's
in a different.
closing. Park's closing, everyone.
Excuse me.
You wanna watch out? I just swapped that.
Two
Alright.
tickets for passage to the First Lady airship.
And this guy's a
Yeah,
bit of
just
a
a minute, friend.
meanie head.
Yeah, I have it. How do you
Put it lightly.
want to proceed?
In a bit of a rush, pal.
If you sort of let him run through his
I got
dialogue
it.
options, he's
Hurrying
going to
back
eventually
wasn't
stab
bad
you
as
in the
a
hand.
I don't like this.
Yes.
We
Stay
know
where
it's
you
going to
are.
happen, so we hold him up and take out these four enemies. Crucially, we're going to want to pick up the shotgun, which is going to be a very important weapon, at least for a little bit. It will be replaced by the end, so we will say goodbye to the shotgun. The time comes, but you can enjoy the times that you have now. We didn't get very much shotgun ammo, which is a little bit concerning, but we can probably live with it. We can probably pick some more up here. These guys.
Where is she?
Normally that is slower, but I actually was quite worried about how little
stay where you
shotgun
are!
ammo I had, so
Get
I
away
decided to
from
take
me!
a
Hey,
little
come
bit of
back here!
Elizabeth is going to be a little bit distraught. She has not been out of the tower for 10 minutes, and she's
All
already
dead.
seen multiple
You
people
killed
die.
those people.
Elizabeth,
You're a monster.
She is justifiably upset
what
with
did you
us.
think was gonna happen?
But she has a habit of getting
Do you
over
understand
things
the
pretty quickly
expense
when the writers need her to.
People
So
went through to keep you locked up in that tower?
this will not be a persistent problem.
You think people like that are just gonna let you walk away? You are an investment, and you will not be safe until you are far away from here.
What do they want from me?
I don't know. One thing I've learned. If you don't draw first, you don't get to draw at all.
You're bleeding. Come here. What happened back there? It's not the last of it, is it?
I don't know.
There.
So, the next section of this game is very cool. It's basically a 25-minute long side quest, which is, as you might see from the estimate of this category, basically 1/4 of the game runtime, which is just awesome. Basically, it will revolve around finding Shock Jockey, which is the another vigor that we can jump that lets us supply electricity to switches that require it. For example, this gate is powered by Shock Jockey, but it will malfunction. Luckily for this gate, we have a bit of a workaround, since we don't have it yet. If we go over and force Elizabeth to pick that lock when she doesn't have any lockpicks, it will sort of replace the gate dialogue with that dialogue. And since that dialogue is shorter than the gate dialogue,
Shock jockey.
it'll sort of overwrite it
Needs
and make the
power.
process a little bit faster.
Some fool's alternative. There it is. First Lady. Looks like it's heading for the dock.
We're going to use these hooks to get over to the another switch.
Just stay
But
close.
this switch you actually will require shock. So, like I said, the next 20-ish minutes of this run are going to be occupied by finding Shock Jockey and coming back to the same exact location.
Of course it does.
And to do that, we're going to go visit the Hall of Heroes.
See, the future of power is the Hall of Heroes.
One thing I made sure to do in
Imagine they
that
were
ticket
interested
booth
in
room
meeting you.
where I killed the first
No
people
doubt.
that I did was try to fill up on salts. The next fights will require quite a bit of salts.
Guess I got a bit behind with current events. Nothing I can't fix.
Well, we watched this cutscene where Elizabeth basically explains to Booker the concept of pairs, or sort of windows into other realities. I will say that ticket booth fight was actually the first required fight of the
Just
entire
kill
game.
it.
No, it'll
Weirdly
sting
enough.
me.
Elizabeth!
I have a better idea.
What are you doing?
Opening a tear.
Oh, shit! What is that?
It's a tear. I used to open them all the time in my tower.
What is a tear?
It's like a
Pairs are actually going to be
window.
useful for us in
window
combat
to
every
another
so
world.
often.
Most of the
Around
time, their
the
doll is
environment,
dishwater,
Elizabeth will have
different
the option
colored
to summon
towel
certain
or
things
tea
into the
instead of
battle.
coffee.
We won't be using them
But
all too much since our
sometimes-
weapons are going to be
Sometimes
too
I see
powerful,
something
but there will be times
amazing,
where they are actually.
And I pull it through. There.
Good God. I don't suppose you've got an airship in there?
I don't think so. But there is. There is something. Oh no!
Close it.
I'm trying!
Close it!
Right. Onwards.
I don't really understand what I just saw back there, but it sure as hell looks like a shortcut to
We have a
getting
lot
us
of ammo
killed.
with this gun.
But I could help.
I can
And
handle
there's
whatever
a very
comes
lengthy
along.
fight.
Trust me.
There's going to be a line of enemies here that do one fireball trap. All of them are taken out. We got that guy, and I'm wondering if this guy will run into the fire. He did, so he will just die. He did that. Pick out this. Not that it's required, but it is very obnoxious. We're gonna look up there to spawn a crow. Otherwise, it might take a little bit longer than I always forget to look up there. Unfortunate. And after that, we're going to pick up Murder of Crows. You might remember me saying from a while back that if you pick up a vigor in its unintended location, then there will not be an associated cutscene. You were supposed to pick up Murder of Crows when we killed the very first crow. But we did not do that because we knew there would be an associated. We waited until now to pick it up.
Sure could use it when there's trouble.
It's not very useful for much, but it's going to be useful for, I think, a total of 2 fights. So, be on the lookout for those. Alright, I would like everyone to say goodbye to the machine gun in chat. We will no longer be using it. It will be replaced by one of the most important guns of the game, the rocket. You'll remember I said before that we're going to actually need to die several times. And the most efficient way of doing that is having a weapon yourself that deals damage to yourself. So the 2 guns that we're going to be picking up on this run are ones that also deal damage to. We're going to pick up a little bit extra stuff from the salt machine. And hope that Elizabeth comes into with us, because she won't activate the cutscene otherwise. We're gonna just basically set up for a couple fights that are coming up. Alright, she was nice. And here's the first time we're going to use crows. We're gonna place a crow trap here. As we're leaving this place, there will be enemies coming in, and they'll hit the crow trap and be sort of incapacitated for a little bit.
Slate? Is that you?
Extra self again, as well as by our first weapon upgrade. It is going to be the damage boost for the rocket launcher.
Look, I see you're caught up in some kind of jam here. If you could see fit to let us through to where they keep this shock jockey, then we'll...
At the same time, we're going to actually begin to shoot off the ground and start lowering our health. We're going to be, after this fight, performing a trick known as a death work. And I'll explain what that is. Hopefully we find some RPG ammo. That would be lovely. It's not guaranteed, unfortunately.
Nice. Just give us the shock
Ideally, we
jockey.
find at least, yeah. Oh, thank God. Okay. Now that we have extra RPG ammo, we don't actually have to buy any at the store. And we can use this to perform a death work. I'm just going to do it and then explain it afterward.
I'll try to keep you stocked with both
Went to the
bandages and
store,
ammo.
and we're going to die.
Right material.
Now that might have looked very awkward. Basically, when you die, and you're sort of in momentum, as long as you're jumping, what will happen is that the game will sort of carry you through collision and walls and certain doors. That basically, if you've played this game casually, you remember that you typically have to go through the Battle of Wounded Knee, as well as the Boxer Rebellion, different showcases of the wars that Booker and the main antagonist of this location, Slate, have fought through together. However, using that death warp, we no longer have to do that. We did have to go backtrack just a little bit, because if we didn't, we would be unable to leave this location. But since we did, we will be scot-free when we leave. We're also going to be performing a sort of a pseudo-death warp, you might call it. We don't actually go through the collision of the gate, but it will spawn us on the other side of the gate for whatever reason. Now, there is a cutscene associated with that particular location there. And we will have to watch it eventually. The difference is, however, in the way that we've just performed that death warp, it will be such that the cutscenes are overlapping, meaning that overall it doesn't.
Too rare is the man who takes a stab at you and I.
If you remember the Alien Patriots, they can be pretty nasty if you play them on a harder difficulty or you've never encountered them before. But since we're pretty familiar with them,
Something I can bring
we're
into
simply
this
going
world.
to place a ton of traps and hopefully take out the fights in less than half of a second. Alright, ready? Great fight. As we unlock this door, we're going to wait until Elizabeth actually begins the lockpicking process, and we're going to perform yet another death warp. When you die when Elizabeth is picking a lock, picking a lock, the door will just, for whatever reason, just be open. This will also happen when you go far enough away from her. It's interesting.
Can you get this open?
We technically do not have to open this
There ain't no shot here.
safe, but we're going to do it anyway, just so we have a little bit of extra money, just in case.
Slate. He's here.
We are now going to witness that overlapping of cutscenes that I was talking about before. The cutscene that is supposed to be playing here, as well as the cutscene that we skipped over, are going to be playing simultaneously. And this is very good, because we can actually use this time to sort of set up the next fights that are coming up.
Slate! Comstock's coming, Booker. But our lives won't satisfy him. Oh, no. Open it! He won't
Not sure I understand this, but I'm not complaining.
By which I mean, we're going to set up some fireball traps on these doors, because we know that there are enemies that are going to be coming from there.
Just give us the vigor. We don't need to do this.
Here you go, boys! Our soldiers duck away!
These enemies will always spawn in here, and with a couple of shots, they will all be taken out. This actually took longer than I would have liked, but not huge.
You're not the Booker DeWitt I remember!
Pick up a little bit of extra salts just in case this isn't going as planned. Sometimes when you throw this fireball here, it doesn't actually kill the enemies, so it's good to just have a backup. Like that. Here's our ninth infusion of it. And we'll pick up a little bit extra.
Soldier? Come on now, DeWitt! Don't
We're gonna
disappoint the
block
boys!
the shock rocket that's coming in with our body, so that it doesn't actually blow up our fireballs. And we will be finishing this fight with another Iron Sentry feather. There we go.
Come on, DeWitt! Show me what you're made of!
For whatever reason, sometimes this gate is just open, and it's very fast, but for the most part it is closed. I'm not exactly sure. The community just thinks it's random. Like I said, there is some RNG, but very unintended RNG. I don't think the game intends you to actually be able to do that sooner than you're supposed to. And we have a bit of a choice here. Save or kill Slate. If I was running this at like a charity marathon or something, I would
That's on your plate! Finish
not
it!
even make a bid war for this, because sparing Slate is
You're
simply
a
faster.
tin man now! A tin man!
And we'll just take the shock jockey from him. Alright, now that we have that out of the way, we can actually just leave the Hall of Heroes.
Comstock's men will surely take him.
Fire enough, they make us go in. I guess they'll make us go out too. This is water, so these enemies will be shocked by the shock jockey. We used to have another strategy there that I used to do. We would throw a fireball there so that those enemies would be taken out immediately. However, that runs the risk of having Elizabeth be considered in combat. Oh, there's those pros and fire that I set up. The reason why that's bad is that Elizabeth can't actually pick blocks when she is in combat. Meaning that since she will permanently be in combat, you've basically soft-locked your file and you have to reset. That's obviously bad, so I just go with the slightly slower, by like literally less than half of a second method of just shocking them with shock jockey. And we're going to be performing a slight skip, so we don't actually have to kill any of the other enemies, by standing far enough along this ledge here and waiting for all of the other cargo to be... We can just jump here and avoid the fight. Jump off at the right time, and we'll make our way all the way back that one switch where we came all the way here for.
We hold these truths to be
It will never be found, because of course it won't be, but if there's ever an opportunity to find early shock jockey, this run would be significantly shortened.
Do what you do. These tears.
I always thought of them as doors. When I was younger, I didn't just open the ones I wanted. I remember making them.
Making them.
I could go wherever I wanted. I just wanted to come back.
To what?
Let's set this on.
Whatever it is.
I was about to say on fire, that's not what I meant. We electrocute that switch one more time, and we can pull it. It's not going to be so easy though. Comstock is going to send his forces on us
What did that
in a very lengthy required fight. Probably the longest one, other than the final fight.
What else could you expect from a liar, killer of women?
Comstock.
Father, prophet.
It is very tempting to pick up this gear since it's just sort of right there, but again, this is gearless, so that would be illegal.
That's where your struggle.
We have a very regimented way of taking out all of the enemies, and the reason this fight is long is not because of how many enemies there are. It's more to do with the fact that you're sort of waiting for them to spawn. We'll be taking out the first enemy by striking this guy, throwing a fireball at him, and when he's on fire, shooting him more. Take him out. Those guys with rocket launchers have a ton of health, so it's really good that we can take them out as fast as possible. This guy is sort of stuck in the ground for some reason. I'm not sure about that. I don't see the other one, so I hope that he's dead. Sometimes the other one just won't spawn or might fall off. I'm not exactly sure what the conditions are there, but we're gonna hope and pray that he's there. I don't have to deal with him later. There will be 5 other guys coming down, so we have a fireball path to take out the first one. And we can try to snipe the other ones off from the approach. I'm not doing a fantastic job of it. Doesn't really matter, doesn't lose any time actually. Because the next enemies are going to be spawning in a very efficient location. And we're basically just gonna play a little bit of tower defense now. We're gonna just basically spawn camp this rail, and enemies will sort of line themselves into our grasp.
Haven't found anything yet.
There is one more set of enemies coming. They will take a little bit longer, so we do have to be a little bit patient before we move on. There they are. And we can now move on to taking out the Patriot that is on this final gondola.
Watch out! Patriot!
We're going to need to use some very precise aiming here, throwing a fireball and shooting our rocket launcher to hopefully deal as much damage as we can in one cycle. Looks like we got him. We will be performing yet another death warp, so we'll be taking as much damage as we can here for the gondola. I'm not doing a spectacular job at it, but it's all. And we will jump over to the gondola before Elizabeth is technically supposed to be able to do anything. If we interact with this lock and don't move, Elizabeth will sort of circumvent the need to wait for all of that, which is very nice.
Ready.
Meaning she'll just open it up, and we don't have to wait for it to get all the way the edge before we can. There's a lot of dialogue that plays here.
When you're
The
unconscious
only thing to really keep in mind is that once the dialogue ends, and rocket launcher yourself, 0 health,
I'm
and it'll
sorry,
spawn you at the
I
top
shouldn't
of the
have cried.
gondola ride. Very, very
Where
nice.
are you from,
We don't have to actually wait
New
for
York.
it.
What did you do there?
Business much like this. Something that really caters writing on a resume.
It was a
I
fine
definitely
thing
don't
you
want
came
to take
along
that.
when you did.
The game
How do
will
you think I
simply
ended
not
up
let
here?
you kill yourself
I
with
gambled.
one rocket
And now
launcher
I
shot
owe
if
money
you
to
have
men
even
you don't want to be in debt
slightly
to.
over 1 health. So
I come here to pay it back.
I'm not gonna
Me
run that.
busting you out. What do you think that was? Charity?
Who sent you?
Somebody who was willing to take my marker in exchange for you.
And that should do it.
No, Booker!
Perfect.
Attack! Flank him!
We got a couple guys that are in my way, and we'll move on.
So, looks like they call you the false shepherd.
There's gonna be a
You
couple
the
things that we
lamb.
pick up in
Let's
this little
not call each
airship.
other that.
Suits me.
How do you
Before
figure
we
they
leave.
know you become
Either they've got a profit on their side,
har har?
Some
or them
money.
that hired me also
Our
wrote the
final
signs.
salt infusion of the game.
Why?
And then
Got
we will
me.
make our way out.
You all right?
I want to see Paris. I want to see everything.
It's up to you now. There's no one.
Wait, what is that? 40
Elizabeth
north
is
by
apparently very good
74
at geography.
west.
And
That's not Paris, that's
is able to
New York.
spot that we're sort of trying to pull
One
it
thing
off.
I
here,
had in that
so
tower was time, Mr. DeWitt. Time to study
we're
things
gonna
like
have to
geography.
I owed
interrupt
money.
her thought process. And she's gonna
There's a
smack
fellow-
us.
He offered to
It's gonna
wipe
hurt.
away my debt in exchange for you. Come on.
actually
Everything's gonna be
split
okay. Will you just
literally
turn around and talk to me
right
and we can...
here, normally. It's just such a easily recognizable. We're also going to meet Daisy Fitzroy, who is leader of the revolution against the Colombian people. We're really not going to see her all too much. You might be surprised to know, if you've played this game casually, that we're basically 1/2 of the way through the run. You might think, that's preposterous. There's all that Emporia stuff that you think and stuff with Shantytown, Good Time Club and everything. However, all of those will be circumvented.
last head did the trick. This one's awake.
So you're this false shepherd we've been hearing so much about. Caused a mess of trouble at the raffle.
You Fitzroy?
Nothing but.
I got no quarrel with you or your Vox Populi. This is my airship you're hanging me out of, and I got perilous need of it.
Really?
He's going to
Does it
tell
sure
us
look like old Comstock's airship to
Listen,
me?
try to
ain't
find
looking for
some
a fight.
guns or armaments.
There's
by
already a fight to win.
gunsmith known as Pen Lin. However, we're going to completely disregard her wishes and skip over all of this.
Comstock is the god of the white man, the rich man, the pitiless man. But if you believe in common folk, then join the Vox. If you believe in the righteous folk, then join
I
the
just
Vox.
want my ship.
And the Vox shall give her to you. But first, you must help the Vox. Down in Finkton, there's a gunsmith who can supply weapons to our cause. Get our guns from him, and you shall have your ship back.
Right, we're also going to put another airship, which would normally kill us, but I guess Booker's just built different. A couple of movement optimizations as we know. Instead of going around, we're going to take the short way here. And instead of going around all of this, we're going to perform cape spin. Simply jump on this railing and jump over this.
The ox cannot become a lion, and why would you want to? Who wants all those responsibilities and worry? You do your job, you eat your food, go to sleep. Simplicity.
Get out of here, snipe. You want to know what we do to pretty little stowaways? Or
We
maybe
now
you
instigate
don't?
the Chase Elizabeth sequence run, which is just
Hey! Just stop for a minute!
Stay away!
I just want to talk to you!
I said
we
stay
can perform
away!
a little bit of an optimization by jumping over the stairwell. Is that exciting?
Elizabeth!
It's hard to make everything in this run exciting.
Get away from me!
Not everything is as
Just hold up for a
octane
minute!
and super
I'm not
cute.
angry with you! Hey, watch out! Move it! Move!
Alright, there will be another requirement where we pick up the
Damn it!
second most again, the volley gun.
Going with
Arguably,
you!
it's actually more important
Don't
because
go
it
in
does
I have no
more
idea what
consistent
such
damage.
as you.
No, no!
It has a very consistent way of taking it out as well. And I'll perform it.
Gotta be another way in.
We're going to be throwing a fireball on this guy over here, and then shooting one rocket launcher, and then two rocket launchers. Ideally, more enemies will appear from the floor, and one enemy will appear. That is the first phase of the fight. Second phase is slightly more. This thing needs to die. There will be some other enemies. Most notably, we must take out this guy and pick up his gun. This is the volley gun. It also does damage to us, in addition to being a very highly powerful weapon against other enemies.
Stop already!
I am not going.
Elizabeth, wait!
We're going to be met with a handyman here. He is, I guess, sort of supposed to be the Big Daddy equivalent of this game, but not really, because that's more what Songbird is. It's this. I wouldn't worry about it too much. We will be fighting a couple handymen throughout this run, but actually, I think we fight specifically one of them. We'll just see more than them. We will be saved from falling to our dooms by Elizabeth's air powers.
Hey, I'm slipping!
And she's going to be a
Do not
little bit
attempt
cross
to
with us,
follow me,
but just
Mr.
like
DeWitt.
before, she
Elizabeth,
tends
I
to
made
get
an
over the
arrangement
most
to get
points
our
of emotional.
airship back.
You
relatively.
can get us out of here.
Yes, I just need to supply enough weapons to arm an entire uprising.
And where will we get these weapons? From one of our many friends and allies?
A gunsmith in Finkton should be a walk in the park. What do you say, partners?
You're a liar, Mr. DeWitt. And a thug. But you're also my only means of reaching Paris.
Alright, so before we enter, we're going to be purchasing a couple things since we have the extra money to do so. we don't have a ton of ammo, and we don't have a ton of salt. So in addition to purchasing a very necessary damage upgrade for our volley gun, we will also be picking up some extra ammo, just so we can make sure that we take ourselves out. No. And we enter Finton Docks. Oh no, we leave Finton Docks, excuse me.
That would be your gunsmith.
There will be a couple of guards that we need to take out first, and we're going to do this very easily with our rocket launcher. And after that, we're just going to open this and place a couple of fireball traps onto the door. This will make it so that the backup is taken out when we actually exit. In addition, we're going to throw an extra one on the stairwell, just so those don't get all of them out. And there's just a little bit of a skirmish. Alright, I heard the end fight little sound prompt, so I can get myself down to 1 health. Activate button. And be ready to take myself out when Elizabeth starts the cut. The reason we do this is not necessarily to death warp, although we will be doing that very soon. We do that so we can basically spawn the elevator at the top without having to wait for Elizabeth. We're going to be taking ourselves down to 1 health yet again, because we're going to be performing probably the most influential skip. If I miss it, that's not fantastic, but it's not. Basically, we're going to be death warping ourselves to the back collision of this elevator, and performing a very precise jump that takes us around the body of Fink. Alright, very good. So all of that stuff with Finkton is now completely skipped. You saw me actually press my body up against the pillar in the center there. When you do that, it sort of like it gives you collision such that it lets you sort of move around and sort of readjust your momentum. It's very nice that it exists. Additionally, normally the way that you would complete this next section would be to
do it.
Ooh, I don't like that there's a Patriot there. The Patriot's not supposed to be there, so I'm gonna actually take the extra time to take him out, even though it's not exactly necessary. Normally there'd be an extra Zeppelin coming through there, but since that will never spawn for us because we never got into this section as intended, we'll simply death warp through the gate. And that's Finkton skip. That skips the entire second act of the game. We're just gonna run past some enemies here.
We need to take
And
that
engage
elevator
in
up.
yet another
That
link.
leads to Fink's office.
Basically, we're just waiting for this phone to ring, so if anyone has any phone emotes in chats, I don't know if that's a common thing. I would very much like to not have to sit through this cutscene. Basically, Elizabeth is going to be very sad that Kenlin is dead, even though we never met this Kenlin guy. Who are you talking about?
They're just right for each other, aren't they?
Who?
Fitzroy and Comstock. Maylin? Mr. Lin? My God, I was so set on getting to Paris. I didn't really think that
You couldn't have known this would happen.
I had a role in this catastrophe.
Oh, there it is.
If
You
you
can
want to
see it
pretend
in-
that we're
in the
purely
subtitles.
innocents
Phone
in
rings.
this, then that's your prerogative, but
Nice. Alright.
Hello?
After this, we'll be performing a
I saw you
not a skip, but it's a bit of an optimization called aim at the dead guy.
Listen, I got
Basically.
you your guns. I'm here for my airship.
The Vox are now your enemies. Vox are now. So, there's going to be a set of 3 of them in this next room, and to most optimally take all of them out in one rocket launcher shot. We're not going to aim at any of them. We're simply going to aim directly at the dead man on the floor. For whatever reason, that is the perfect spots for the rocket launcher to take all 3 in. There's our dead man. And there they go. Very fun. Open this gate here and turn around Pinus and loot all of this
Keep a lookout.
really cool money that we're gonna get.
All yours.
And we're gonna instigate the factory. It's a very lengthy fight. So we're gonna set a couple traps just in stragglers that get away from us. And prepare a huge wave of Vox enemies. But thankfully, we again have a pretty consistent firemen, enemies that shoot fire from their hands, if that was not very clear, are very weak to fire. I mean, the bucking broncos, they're not weak to fire. That was completely untrue. Afterwards, we're going to come up here and start placing some fireball traps, since enemies really like to be stuck up here for some reason, so if we don't have sort of a contingency plan to take care of them, we will be having some problems. Some enemies will be taken out like that. Ideally, we take... I don't know why this guy is so far over here. And after that, we will be met with a handyman, one of those enemies that I was talking about before. This is the other reason we pick up Murder Crows. We needed to take out the handyman because for some reason, that is the handyman's weakness. A lot of them, like I've mentioned before, have weaknesses to very specific items and stuff like that. And for some reason, the handyman is weak to Murder Crows, and I don't know why.
Here!
Nice!
Alright, awesome. I will say that this fight is very scary. Not necessarily in a marathon, because it's very, very rare that this happens. But there is a non-zero chance that one of the enemies in this fight are simply unkillable. You can't find him anywhere. You can't kill him, and therefore the fight is completely soft-locked.
Is this your movement, Daisy?
If that happens, it's very heartbreaking, very soul-crushing, but
to be done.
what do we do about it?
You see, the founders ain't nothing but weeds. Cut them down and they just grow back. If you want to get rid of the weed, you gotta pull it up from the root. It's the only way to get...
Elizabeth.
I guess it runs in the family.
Elizabeth.
Whoa, whoa, hey, easy. Why don't you just come out of there?
Elizabeth.
This is all they had.
Listen,
How do you do it?
how do I do what?
Forget. How do you wash away the things that you've done?
You don't. Just learn to live with it.
So the moment of truth between us. New York or Paris?
Shit. Come on, we gotta find a way to make this thing go faster.
There's gotta be some sort of throttle or accelerator.
Do you know what that looks like?
I don't know.
Help me find it! Elizabeth! Hang on to something!
That's not it.
Certainly is. Is.
Try again.
All
Hold
right,
on.
Here you are.
Booker, we've got to stop them.
No, that's the E.
No, that is certainly it.
No, it's not.
It is.
Isn't.
Is.
Stop it! Stop it! You don't know what you're doing!
There it is.
You've done it now. He's coming back. He's coming back.
The notes were correct.
The instrument was not.
One needs both to get his attention.
But if you know how to sing to him,
He will take you where you need to go.
Who are you?
we are where we are needed.
And needed where we are.
So Comstock uses these songs. Are there others we can use? Something to keep the bird off our back?
Perhaps you should ask the maestro himself.
So where is he? Of course. Well, at least they left the piano.
Booker. That's Comstock House. We're gonna find him. We should start there.
The bots are coming! We need to leave the dock! We need to push off immediately! The bots are coming!
Testing microphone again. Alright, that should work. Not sure why that happened. But thank you, Jasper.
Little help.
On it.
What is it about that song that brings in the bird?
We performed a couple skips there.
Excited when I heard it.
Excited.
He was all I had.
One of which was simply jumping over that fight trigger that you might remember from that particular fight. And the second one was running backwards, like I said before, and having Elizabeth open that door instantly, just by running a little bit away from her. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure why the mic is disconnected. I literally did not touch it at all with it.
I don't think anyone can really see the future. Do you?
I saw something once.
I'm glad we
First
know.
guy.
Glad we figured it out.
Do you think he wanted any of this?
That's all I really explained during my brief period of muting. Oh, ideally, Elizabeth. Yeah, we would have much preferred to get ammo from Elizabeth instead of that. Unfortunately, she did not give us ammo.
Got a lock here.
Like I said, if the game doesn't really know what to give you between two different resources, the game simply gives you the same game simply gives you one of the things that you need. She gave us salts when we really wanted ammo. So we're gonna take our extra money that we got from that one safe and go ahead and pick up some extra ammo once we have the funds to do so.
Giant balloons.
Quantum particles, suspended in space-time at a fixed height.
So, not giant balloons?
But the thing is, my book said they disappeared several years ago.
I told you they'd come.
No, you didn't.
Right. I was going to tell you they'd come.
But you didn't.
But I don't.
You sure that's right?
Something tells me they're not exactly what they appear.
I was going
And this scene is supposed to
That's not subjunctive.
get us invested into the story of the Lutesses, but
Had to have had been.
we're gonna skip over the entirety of it.
Odd, isn't it?
What's odd?
The fact that we sometimes...
Finish each other's sentences?
Exactly.
It would be odder if we didn't.
How do you suppose they managed that?
I'll get back to you after I figure out the floating city bit.
Alright, you might notice that I've been damaging myself down a little bit. That's because you might have expected, and you would have expected correctly, that we're going to be performing yet another death warp. This is a very important one. There's a very, very lengthy fight that takes place coming up, and we would like to skip it. So we're going to purchase some things here. And death warp ourselves through the gate in a very specific location. This will make it so that the enemies will be sort of de-aggroed. But we'll still actually be able to unlock the gate, even though there technically are enemies on screen. It's a very clever use of the death warping. Ideally, since the game did not decide to kill me. Alright, hopefully this works.
Keep your eyes open.
It does, thankfully.
Got it.
We're gonna pull these two snipers down. Take them out, and that's gonna be the end of Emporia. Emporia skip is technically not required, because you can just do the fight, but that fight is very, very long, and in multiple stages, so it's a good thing that there's a way around it.
Let's hope we find one of those fools. This might be it.
We have a very lengthy cutscene here with Songbird. Booker has a propensity for sort of lifting his body out of cover, perhaps a bit too much, to try to get a good look at Songbird. This is indeed one of those instances. Alright, this next cutscene is supposed to, like, make us feel sorry for Elizabeth, but all it really does for me is, expose to me how either small Elizabeth's hands are, or how big our hands are. Or both, perhaps. Elizabeth is gonna tell Booker to, make sure to not let Songbird take her back, but in doing so, she's gonna demonstrate the vast smallness of her hands. I'm not exactly sure what the perspective is doing here.
Won't come to that. All right.
And we leave the area. Alright, coming up next is yet another extremely long fight. We will not be doing it. We will be performing the first of two gate skips in a row. There are two ways of performing the gate skip. One is the fast way, where you sort of just go over the gate, and one is the slow way, or the more consistent way, which I will be doing, because we've discovered that if you're not at PC levels of frame rate, it's just inconsistent whether you get the fast way or not. So the slow way is much more consistent for console. We get to make use of our new vigors, and you'll see what they do. First is Undertow, which lets you pull enemies towards yourself. That'll be very helpful here. Take as many enemies as we can, push them through the gate. We're going to now activate Bucking Bronco, which you've seen before. It lifts enemies up into the air. And then we'll use Charge, which is very fun, and it lets you charge right at enemies with a melee attack. You'll see me damaging down, and you can sort of expect what that's for. Here we're going to actually get our second and final upgrade for the volley gun, giving it a bit of a damage boost just for the end of the run. Charge is an extremely fun vigor that I wish there was a New Game Plus mode in this game so we could actually use it in the early game, but it does have some very fun uses, as we will see here. This fight is technically required, but we're going to skip over it by using a lot of charge. Charge this guy, run up the stairs and charge this guy, and we're out of the arena already. Alright, coming up is Comstock Gate Skip, which is an extremely important skip that skips the entirety of the Lady Comstock fights. If you remember this game casually, you have to fight a ghost 3 times, and we would rather not do that, so instead we're gonna Death Warp at this gate, and play a little bit of The Floor is Lava here. If we touch the ground of which Comstock Gate is surrounded, the checkpoint will actually be respawned there. But we actually want to use the checkpoint that we set by death warping through the gate. So we need to make sure that we do not touch the floor. That would be very bad. To activate the checkpoint that we did set, we're just going to be jumping over to a point very far away from the gate, and it should spawn us through. Very good. There's going to be a very lengthy cutscene here with Songbird, who's going to actually take Elizabeth away, so we have already failed the mission that she gave us. Although, to be fair, that entire section is supposed to take, like, an additional 15 to 20 minutes, so it's a good thing that we did not have to watch any of that. Here we are back at the totally not at all plot relevant room, and we're just gonna leave by opening this small door. If you've got any stab emotes, you will see the perfect time to use them. It will be relatively obvious, I promise you. There it is.
I'm sorry. I never should have left. I never should have left. Take me back. Take me home. Please.
Yeah, Elizabeth will be taken away by Songbird. And we have to go chase after her. In order to do that, we're going to be performing one of my favorite skips of this game called Asylum Skip. If you remember this game casually, this entire place here is very scary. It's like the horror section of the game, and we're going to skip it all. We're not going to see any of it. You'll remember what the charge vigor does. It lets you sort of melee attack your way towards an enemy. Thankfully, it does not bring enemies towards you like Undertow does. It lets you charge towards enemies. And we're going to be making use of that to great effect in this next encounter. After you see me enter the room, you're going to see me turn around and look up. There's going to be a couple turrets that are going to be on top of the next floor. By standing towards this George Washington looking fella, we can turn around and sort of make our way past all of the encounters in the entire area just by doing that one trick. I love that trick. I think it's really understandable. I think it's pretty accessible. If any of this looks interesting to you, I would absolutely recommend trying that skip, because it is it's very flashy, and I think it's totally understandable exactly what we're doing with the charge vigor. We're going to be making our way to the warden's office so we can make our way to Elizabeth, who has been captured. I'm also going to be lowering my health just a little bit, since we're going to be, yes, performing yet another death warp.
Should be able to head downstairs and get to Elizabeth now.
Turn around with a brief jump scare, but nothing we can't handle as speedrunners. jump back towards the elevator, and make our way down. The game really wants us to watch this tear that we're going to see, but we're actually going to skip over the necessity of that. We're going to hear a little bit of the dialogue. And then we're going to Death Warp. This will make it so that we spawn at the bottom without having to watch the elevators very slowly make its way all the way down. And we can activate the next segment of cutscenes. This is the end of the run, or at least nearing the end of the run, and unfortunately that just means we're sort of bombarded by cutscenes. I will do my best to make them as entertaining as possible, but this game is story-driven at its core.
The lunatics are running the asylum. They don't even listen to me anymore. All I can do is watch as what I set into motion slides into its terminal stage. It took all I had left in me just to bring you here.
Elizabeth, I don't understand. I heard you screaming. I was coming to get you. Are we...
Here. Take my hand.
So generally speaking, it behooves you to look at a character's neck when you're about to talk to them. There are indeed some exceptions to this rule, but for whatever reason, looking at their neck is like a relatively consistent way to make sure that you enter their next line of dialogue as fast as possible.
Drown in flame the mountains of man. Say what you will about Comstock. He was a hell of a fortune teller. Wasn't the torture that broke me. Wasn't the
So yeah, this is this is the future that Comstock wants. He wants Elizabeth to take his throne and rain fire on the society that shunned him out. And in this future that old Elizabeth has sent us towards, he succeeded. So it is our job to return to our reality and make sure that that does not happen.
What is this?
It's for her. She'll know how to read it.
What does it say?
It's advice.
Advice on what?
How not to become me.
Alright. We're going to be using charge a little bit more, which is great because I love charge. Basically, we're trying to rescue Elizabeth by deactivating 2 switches, and we're going to need to get to these switches as fast as possible with this movement of charge. Jump towards this guy. Jump towards this guy. And make our way to the first switch. We're going to be doing the same thing to the other side. Charge over to this guy, and make our way to the second switch. Enemies will not be able to hurt us after this next section, so we're going to take the time to damage down a little bit for the next Death Warp. And simply make our way to Elizabeth. Now, technically, it is the fastest to sort of jump down these stairs. However, if you jumped in this hallway at all during this cutscene that's playing, there's a very small chance that you actually just clip through the floor and have to do all of that over again. That's obviously terrible, and I learned that the hard way when I was learning this game. Don't do what I did. Heed my advice. Never jump there.
Help me with this.
I think someone meant for you to have this.
What is it?
Just read it.
Your dream of New York.
There's a prompt here for tie corsets, which, you know, you'd think that's just normal, just another prompt, but I think I always get confused, and sometimes I just, like, forget that it's there and lose, like, 2 seconds. I think I forget it because there's an animation of Booker, like, beginning to tie the corset, and then the prompt tie corset appears, so sometimes I just forget to press the Y button.
And so what, you're going to kill him?
Is this where you start moralizing, Booker?
You forget. I know you.
I'm not going to let you kill him.
Really? Booker? What are you going to do to stop me?
Not a damn thing. Because I'm gonna do it for you.
Make our way to the next section of the game. Make sure we have very little health, because we will need to be performing yet another death warp.
The hand of the prophet, he calls it.
When did you learn that?
Been here for a while.
How long?
Long enough.
Have her open that. And we will not death warp here. Although, we will be death warping in the next segment of the game, which is the game's final one. It's the final segment, but it's a very long one, so
Everything here is a cipher that I understand.
be on your guard.
It's a cage. Did she say anything about
Elizabeth will note the card that old Elizabeth gave us, saying that most of the code that's written on it she understands, but there's a picture of a cage that she's not entirely sure what that means, and spoiler alert, we figure it out. It's sort of a weird mystery to set up. We're gonna have her unlock, or attempt to unlock this door, rather. And as soon as she gets going, we will perform a death warp by jumping through the door. This will make it so that the door is immediately unlocked, and we don't actually have to wait for Comstock's gigantic speech. Alright, this next fight is very, very, very specifically planned. We need to take out 3 big enemies before we take out any of the small enemies. Which means we need to take out 2 Iron Patriots in a very specific order. As well as this volley gun guy who's here. If we take out them first, it'll make it so that the next gondola that will spawn over here actually comes a little bit faster. If you don't do that, and you just sort of take out enemies willy-nilly, sometimes this thing just doesn't appear, which is obviously terrible, so it's a good thing that we completed that first phase of the fight successfully. We're not going to wait all the way, we're just going to jump over to the platform. And pull this lever to start every speedrunner's favorite thing ever, the auto-scroller. There's unfortunately nothing we can do. We must take out all the enemies that the game throws at us in order. But there are optimizations for it. One of them is a very fun one called Pull and Push.
Over there. It's Comstock's men. They're coming out to meet us.
You are familiar with what Undertow does now. It lets you pull enemies towards you. It also lets you push them, so you can just push them off like that. And thankfully that does kill them, so we don't actually have to worry about that. The next enemies that are going to be coming in wave 1.5 are these flying turrets that we would have normally seen if we had played through the Finkton section of the game, but we skipped over it. You might be wondering why we're not actually doing that same strategy here. And the main reason for it is because this stuff over here, this will happen no matter what. You can't make this go any faster, so we might as well take the time to loot the ship while we're here.
Take it.
That'll do.
Found ammo.
Wow, we have so much ammo. I guess that's good. I guess I shouldn't be complaining about that. Yeah, we just sort of have to wait, let them do their thing. Alright, the next one here is going to be 6 enemies, and thankfully you can pull a maximum of 3 enemies with your undertow, so hopefully we can get half of them each in one shot. Looks like we did. Or not. Nope. Did we? Yeah, we did. Okay. That was very strange. Take out 3 of these guys. Grab the extra salt that Elizabeth wants to give us. And these guys are actually rather aggressive, so we're actually going to jump up there. Take out any other enemies that are behind. And then make sure we take out these. Alright, very good. That was a decent auto-scroller, not the best. But, okay. We're going to hook onto this sky hook here because we're going to want to get as far as possible without actually having to run over there. And re-equip charge because we're going to need to use it again because it's my favorite movement option in this game. It's a shame that it gets introduced so late.
I wouldn't go near those lines while those pods are in place. This should clear up.
I have seen the seeds of fire that will prepare the Sodom below for the coming of the Lord. But it will not be I.
Alright, so we need to wait for all of these, all of these pawns, Patriot pawns, I believe they're called, to fall. And then we can make our way up to the next, next bridge, the next deck. We will need to do the same thing for the second deck. However, it's going to take a little bit longer. So we're going to actually employ one of the most sophisticated strategies in this entire game.
Which one of you men will not gladly go to his reward to see her safely to her destiny? Rejoice!
It's called stand in this corner and do nothing. So that's exactly what we're going to do. You waste a lot of ammo if you actually just try to go out and take out enemies. You can waste salts, potentially, and we want to be on low health anyway, so... in order to avoid having to actually fall ourselves to that fate, we're just gonna wait here and do nothing. Completely hands-free. Every so often there can be an enemy that actually does make its way up to us and shoots us, but that's very rare. So let's see if we actually get a... Let's see if we get a lucky winner this time.
It sure is taking its time.
Booker the barge.
He's shooting us from over here. There, that doesn't count. Nope, looks like we didn't get any lucky winners this time. Just unobservant people. Alright, we're making our way to the final engineering deck. And we're going to be doing a little bit more optimal charge movement. Hook onto the railing. Hook down here. And then we're going to charge twice over both of these gaps. And make our way all the way to this railing, because this fight is also not necessary. You might have noticed a handyman in the background, and you remember how much of a pain he must take on last time, so it is a blessing that we do not have to do that. There will be a death warp that we need to perform after this cutscene where we kill Comstock, spoiler alert. But I will say that there used to be another skip that we used to do instead of that. We used to sort of make our way to the top of the airship and kill ourselves in such a way where we could fall into the cutscene and have Comstock be activated, but also the door. It was a really weird skip. And I'm glad we don't have to do it anymore, because apparently none of us really thought to just perform a normal death warp through the door, but now that we've tried that, that definitely supersedes that in terms of usefulness.
Stand back. I'm ending this.
Booker, no. This is between me and him.
Walking into a trap.
I need to do this.
Come here, child.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, so if we were to do this, if we were to do the old strat that we did, there would be a giant blood stain on the back of his head, because at the end of this cutscene, he gets his head bashed into the fountain. So it would have sort of already loaded Comstock, and also already loaded the door that we're trying to go to. It's very strange. But I'm glad we don't actually have to do it anymore, because it was actually rather difficult.
Seed of the prophet shall sit the throne and drown in flame the mountains of man. But the archangel revealed something else. Beware, prophet. Beware the false shepherd, Booker DeWitt. For he shall be as a wall between her and destiny.
Why?
DeWitt, I'm a fool. I've sent mighty armies to stop you. I've rained fire on you from above. I did all of that to keep you from her, when all I needed was to tell her the truth. Ask him, child. Ask him what happened to your finger. Ask DeWitt.
Alright.
She's your daughter, you son of a
Incoming
bitch.
violence.
You abandoned her. Was it worth it? Huh? Did you get what you wanted?
Booker.
Tell me.
Booker.
Tell me.
It is finished.
Nothing is finished.
Yeah, so that bloody mark on the back of his head would have already been there if we had done the old trick. But the new trick is way easier to pull off. And also faster, so it's the best of both worlds.
What did he mean? Huh? You tell me, what did he mean about my finger?
I don't know. Yeah, I just assumed you were born with it. I don't know.
Who knows? It's bleeding.
What?
Alright, here's our final death warp of the run.
I have no idea what he was talking about.
Alright, there it is.
Paige, what is it?
No, what?
What is she trying to tell us? Paige.
Alright, so this is the final fight of the game. I actually just PB'd in this category during stream earlier today, and a large part of that was performing this fight basically perfectly. This fight was really, really, really good. I don't know if I'm going to be able to match that success, but that is to say, we have a pretty specific way that we actually take out all the enemies. Basically, the point of this fight is that there's eventually going to be 3 Zeppelins that come through to make our lives harder. One from here, one from here, then, sorry, one from here, and then one here paired with another one from here. The easiest way to take them out is with Songbird here. Songbird is going to become our friends now that Elizabeth has played the Cage Melody. That's what that card meant. And because of that, we can now take out enemies. Songbird can take out enemies instead of us having to do it. So we have a very regimented schedule of when Songbird needs to take out certain things. Alright, the first thing we're going to want to do is make sure we have Undertow out, because as we've noted, guys with rocket launchers have a ton of health, and we really don't like that. So the fastest way to take them out instead is to just push them overboard, because they lose all their HP. Second thing we're going to do is take out the remaining stragglers here. And then we make our way to our second thing. I will take those salts, that's very good. And we're going to take out this airship with Songbird. This will make it so that we can take out the rest of these enemies just with our Undertow and our volley gun. Very fast. Coming up is going to be a turret ship, which is not too hard to take out. All you need to do is hit it with whatever that was. Shocky, excuse me. and hit it with a couple times with your volley gun. The worst thing that can happen here is that enemies, particularly the rocket launcher guys, actually make it past the barge and run up these stairs. It can be really, really hard to actually take out, to catch an enemy with Undertow when they're behind a little barrier, which you'll notice that the entire upper level here is like covered with barriers, so we need to make sure we're very careful about that. A couple more Patriots here. We want to make sure we take those out. Make sure we don't let these guys get away, like I just saying. And in addition, take out this final turret thing that's here. Looks like I missed a couple guys, but they seem to be right right where I need them to be. Alright, that was a very, very, very fast second phase. We're gonna need charge for one more little excursion here. We were taught in a section that we skipped over how to actually take out Zeppelins manually, so we do need to do that for one of them. However, the other one we're going to be taking out with Songbird when we get a chance. Why can't I dismount on this thing? This is not that hard, okay. You'll see that the Songbird timer is almost ready. But we're going to be doing that after. We're going to charge over to this Iron Patriots, which will bring us right to the engine that we can destroy. Make sure we pick up a little bit more ammo on our way out. And take out the second Zeppelin with our giant bird. Last thing to do here is just take out a couple more enemies. Oh, I'm out of ult for some reason. And that's the final fight. That was a little bit slower than my PB run that I just did today, but that was still relatively good. We're going to wait all the way at the bow for Elizabeth. To wait for Elizabeth. Where are you, Elizabeth? Elizabeth. She wants to give me... Oh, there she is. Oh, wow, she beat... She did another teleport... one more final teleporting act. Not exactly sure what happened there. Alright, this is one of those exceptions. It's faster to look at Elizabeth's face than to look at her neck for this particular talking prompt.
Come here.
What is it?
Look, you can use the Songbird to bring the whole damn thing down. Destroy the siphon.
Now, while you might think that defeating the final fight is the end of the run, anyone who's played this game knows that there is a just massive 10 to 11 minute walking simulator that they just throw in at the end to wrap up all the loose ends plot-wise, so unfortunately we must do that since we still have control. So, be ready for some really optimal walking, if that's very fun for you.
Where is he?
So, we learned from all the way at the beginning of the game that Songbird has a particular weakness to water pressure. So, by teleporting him to this very insignificant place under the city, under the ocean, Songbird will die. So, rip Songbird, I suppose.
Elizabeth, I'm sorry.
Alright. Indeed, we are in Rapture right now. The place the
What is this place?
what is the word I'm looking for? The setting for Bioshock 1.
It's a doorway. One of
But we won't be here for long.
this way.
What do you mean it's a doorway? Where are you going?
Oh, come on. Yes, it's this way.
What Comstock said about your finger. Is there an answer here? Do you...
Down here. This is where we have to go.
Why? What is going on?
All right.
Elizabeth, what do you mean that this is a doorway? Probably gonna...
I hope you liked how fast we were moving there, because that is the last time that we will ever be moving fast in this game. Despite it being a speedrun.
City at the bottom of the ocean. Ridiculous.
Hahaha, that is ridiculous, Booker. Okay, so let's take this time to sort of go over the story. Since we have it, we might as well. Basically, Elizabeth was born, not born with the ability, but Elizabeth has the ability to open tears, which means that she can unlock doors into all of the universes. The Monument Islands, the primary goal of Monument Island, was to sort of drain her of that power for later use.
Come on, it's this way. Come on.
After that tower is destroyed, Elizabeth now has basically the powers of a god. She can go through any portals. She knows everything that will happen, anytime, anywhere.
I thought once we were here, I could fully control it. I thought.
Now, what is Booker's role in all of this? Well, Booker was told to bring back the girl, bring us the girl, and wipe away the dead. In Booker's home universe, what this meant is that Booker was accruing a ton of debts after being so mentally scarred from the Battle of Wounded Knee and the Boxer Rebellion. This means that the girl is referring to his daughter Anna, whom he gave to the Lutesses and Comstock to rid of all of the gambling debts that he accrued. However, he did not really like this decision, so he tried to stop Comstock at the very last second, but Anna's pinky got cut off in the trade-off. And what that meant is that a part of Elizabeth was still in another dimension, so for some reason that means that she has the powers of a god now, basically. Don't worry about that, it's whatever. Booker, however, wanted to get a baptism first to sort of rid himself of all of his sins from those 2 battles that he fought in. And in an attempt to do so, one version of him did not take the baptism. That was the version that stayed Booker DeWitt. That is who we are playing as currently. However, at least one of those Bookers turned into Comstock. That was his birth name. So Booker is indeed Comstock. And the only way to actually truly get rid of Comstock in all the dimensions is to kill Booker at the moment of the baptism. Before I go on with more lore stuff, I should say that there is technically a faster way to do this, particularly if you're on the PC, but even if you're not, there's a gear that you can pick up called Fleet Feet, and what it does is it increases your movement speed when you're strafing or walking backwards. That means when you're playing a run of this game where gears are allowed, equipping Fleet Feet and then walking backwards through this entire section is actually the fastest movement. It looks very stupid, but it is indeed the fastest way that we can get around.
Come on now, time's a-wasted.
Why were you here?
Are you ready to have your past
Well, I did not know this preacher guy had collision. Anyone want to stand on a preacher? Alright. So this is that, baptism I was talking about. In this version of the past that we're currently witnessing, Booker did not take the baptism, meaning that he remained Booker. But like I said, there is another version of Booker that actually did take the baptism and become Zachary Hale Comstock.
Stop it. Stop it.
What are you doing to it?
Get off me! Get off!
Son!
You didn't go through with
You
it.
think a dunk in the river's gonna change the things I've done? Let's get out of here. Hey, these doors of yours, they're all tears, right? Well, open one up. Open one up to Paris. I want to be shut of all this.
Not until we find Comstock.
Comstock's dead!
No. He was here. This way.
All right.
And what of my debts?
So these are the Lutesses who were hired by Comstock to retrieve baby Anna. The reason why Comstock needs Anna in the first place is because Comstock, through the use of all of his tears and profiting, has become sterile. It's not really explained why. You just need to know that he becomes sterile. And because of that, he doesn't have a birth heir to take over his place when he dies. So, he is basically using a version of his daughter from another dimension to act as his surrogate daughter. It's a little bit of a complicated plan, but this is Anna, and Anna is basically Elizabeth. Elizabeth is that girl that we are rescuing.
I can see all the doors, and what's behind all the doors. And behind one of them, I see him.
Comstock. What choice do I have?
The debt's paid. Mr. Comstock washes you of all your sins.
Alright.
Bring us the girl and wipe away the debt.
So yeah, that phrase, bring us the girl and wipe away the debt, was originally intended to refer to bringing Comstock Anna to wipe away his gambling debts. But when you move into another universe, what happens is things that are in your memory sort of get rewritten to fit the context of this new universe. So bring us the girl and wipe away the debt finally meant that to erase the gambling debts, that Booker had to go to Columbia and rescue Elizabeth. So the girl has technically stayed the same the entire time, but in a very different context.
It's not over because the prophet is dead. It will only be over when he never even lived in the first place.
Hey. Hey, the deal's off, you hear me?
This is that handoff that I was talking about. You'll note that Elizabeth did have the tip of her pinky removed when we first met her in Monument Island. And this is the impetus for that. Elizabeth, or Anna, I guess I should say, does this very normal thing when you stretch out your hand and stick your pinky out, you know? When you do that, when you're stretching your hand. And yes, the tip of her pinky was severed in the transfer between dimensions.
Anna? No. No. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
She's gone.
Anna, I'm sorry.
Anna's gone.
Alright, so that's basically the story, and this run has gone long enough, so I will take the time as we make our way to the end of the run to do the normal shoutouts and ending things that one does in a marathon run. My name is A Variety Pack, and if you have liked what I have done, you can find me on Twitch at A Variety Pack. I stream this game and Bayonetta and Skyward Sword HD, and I've been looking to move on to other games. I definitely want to shout out the Bioshock community for being so helpful and letting me learn this run. I was very intimidated by it. I started with the DLCs to this game, but when I finally moved on to running the actual game, the actual main game, they were very, very helpful, and many people in the Shots Fired community, in fact, were very helpful in getting me the skills that I needed. I also just want to shout out my community, which seems slightly sappy, but without their encouragement, I would not be here performing for you today, so thank you very much for pushing me to do things like this. I really, really appreciate it.
Booker, wake up. This is where it started.
I sold you. I sold you.
To your credit, you did try to weasel out of the deal.
This is all Comstock's fault. What if I went back, killed him before he did any of this?
things get set in motion.
How would one know how far back to go?
Alright, so time will be when we look at the door, or at least activate the door, when we get to the top of this lighthouse. So I'll give you a little bit of a countdown here. Yes, this would be faster if we had fleet feet and we were walking backwards, but we don't have that luxury in Gearless. Alright, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Alright, that is time. Thank you very much for watching Bioshock Infinite 90% Gearless on the Nintendo Switch, and have a good rest of your marathon. Thanks for watching.